CloudBlue Connect is a catalog and channel management platform that connects customers, vendors, and providers together. It also offers a comprehensive set of APIs that enable organizations to automate integration processes into the platform. Using the new Flowgear CloudBlue Connect node, you can now build those integrations visually, and that's what I'll walk you through in this video. We'll look at how to create a connection, run some initial calls, and then I'll show you how to bake those out into a full-blown workflow that looks at orders pending and integrates them through into Salesforce. We're going to begin by creating a new Flowgear workflow. And onto that canvas, I'm going to add the new CloudBlue Connect node. First thing we'll do over here is create a connection for this node. So I'll focus the connection button, click on the plus, that generates a connection stub for me, and then I'll click the edit icon to be able to drill into that connection. Now the only piece of information that we need in here is the Flowgear token, and we're going to sign into CloudBlue Connect to be able to obtain that token. From the landing page, click on Extensions, go to Token, click on Create Token, provide a name under Label, and then under Type, choose Flowgear Integration Token, and click Create. You can now copy that token by clicking this Copy button here. Back on the connection, paste that token in, and hit the Save button. You can verify the connection by clicking Play. So we're ready to go, and now we just need to choose exactly what call we want to make onto the API. To see a list of the available calls, click on the context option over here and choose Sample. This comes up with a list of all of the potential interactions available for this connector, and these are refreshed as new updates are made to the CloudBlue Connect platform. All the usual CRUD operations are supported, but for our first example, I'm just going to do a list assets call. And because this is a query, it's going to ask me which properties I'd like to be able to filter on. So this is the list of all of the properties that are available. You can choose which ones to filter on if you'd like to, or you can clear these out if you just want the default set of results returned. I'm going to click on None, and then I'm going to just enable the limit property so that I can constrain the maximum number of results that is going to be returned. When I click Continue, that sample has been loaded onto the design canvas. If I hover the response option, I can see a schema of the type of data that will come back, and notice that a custom property called limit has been added to the design of this node as well. I'll just hard code the number 10 into that, and then connect an execution flow up from the start so that I can run this workflow. Now that that's finished running, I can focus the row in the activity log and see exactly what came back. The response is presented over on the right-hand side, and I can drill into that property over there and just format this list to see a list of all of the assets that have come back. So we've seen how you can use the CloudBlue Connect node to query information out of CloudBlue Connect, but what if you want to be able to push data into it? Again, you begin from the samples area, so I'm going to go to Choose Sample, and we'll look at how to create a price list as an example of writing some data into CloudBlue Connect. So when I filter for that, you can see the sample over here. It's called Create Price List. And as I load that up, you'll see that the request payload populates with a JSON document showing me all of the fields and the different types of data that should be attached to those fields. Now, to get this to work, I could manually modify this document, but normally an integration using our platform is going to have sourced that data from some third-party location. Perhaps there's a list of price lists and products coming from a file, an FTP server, a database, and so on. So to mock that out, what we're going to do is take that JSON payload as is, we'll just copy that to the clipboard, and then we'll use our visual data map, a quick map. So I'll add that to the canvas. We'll pop that in as the first step over here, and then we're going to paste that data into the source property. So that's the JSON document that we just copied, paste that into the source property, and then connect a data flow connector over here. What this does is allows QuickMap to see an example of its source data, which we've mocked out into the source property, and an example of what it needs to reshape the data to by looking at what this property is connected to, which is of course the request property, where the request is going to actually ultimately be sent. Next, we need to just connect up the execution flows so that when I run this workflow, it'll first execute QuickMap, followed by CloudBlue Connect, and then we'll go into the mapping to be able to build this document. Now, not all of the fields are required here, so I'm just going to put some of them together by hand. And we're not actually using QuickMap correctly. Normally we want to source data from over here, but we don't actually have valid source data, so we're just going to hard code out some things to get an example price list to be created. So I'm going to do a name, a description, a currency. We have to provide a precision and then a status for the price list, and then we need just one product to be added in to make this a valid call as well. So if we jump across to CloudBlue Connect and we have a look at the products, here's a product code, so I'm just going to copy that product code and we will paste that ID in over here. So as we've done that, QuickMap has generated a preview for us of exactly how that payload is going to be structured. And of course, if we had queried a data source, we would have had the fields over there presented to us for visual mapping as well. Now we're ready to execute this workflow. And if I look over on the right-hand side, I can get confirmation that it has in fact generated the test price list. And if I have a look back in the CloudBlue Connect console, let's go back to price lists. My second price list has shown up at the top over there. So now that we've looked at some simple examples, let's look at a real-world use case. In the workflow I'm going to show you, we're integrating open asset requests out of CloudBlue Connect into Salesforce as orders. A user can then open that order inside Salesforce, do the processing they need to, and ultimately close off that order. When they do that, we're going to use outbound messages in Salesforce to cause another workflow in Flowgear to get triggered, which will then close off that request in the CloudBlue platform. This is the first workflow. It gets a list of all of the pending orders using the sample list requests, and I loaded that up using the same choose sample technique that I showed you earlier. Now, because there are multiple orders that may come back, the next step is that we iterate through those orders individually, and then we start to prepare the request for Salesforce. There are two stages to this. First, we create an order header, and then we create the order lines. So if I drill into the order header over here, on the left-hand side you can see the fields coming through for CloudBlue Connect. On the right-hand side is the Salesforce order header document, and you can see a preview of that beginning to appear on the right-hand side. We then go and generate that order inside Salesforce, and then we prepare the detail line that needs to be associated with that order, also using QuickMap to do that visually. We verify that the order was created successfully, and then if so, we go and generate the lines into that order. So to get this to work, we'll need to generate an asset request in the platform. And I'm going to do that by going to Directory and then clicking on Create Asset. And I'm just going to step through this wizard, putting in some dummy data to get it to complete. Now if we go back to the asset list, you'll notice that under Requests, it's marked as pending. And this is now in a status that we're able to query through Flowgear. So before we run the whole thing, I'm just going to run the one stage to show you what that looks like. So we're running the get pending orders request right now. And that's come back with that asset request, which is this document over here. So this is the basis of what we'll end up integrating through into Salesforce. Now we can connect that up and let that run. So we've created both the order header and the order line, and now it's time to go across into Salesforce and have a look at that order. Incidentally, if we just look at the response that came out of Salesforce, this is the confirmation of that order document that just got generated, and we can see over here that it's been put into status draft. So now if we go across to Salesforce, you can see that there's a new order showing up in status draft. If I drill into that, I can do my processing on it, and when I'm ready, I can put that order into activated status. What I've then done is configured outbound messages inside Salesforce so that when the status of this order changes, it will fire a Flowgear workflow. Here's how that works. So back in Flowgear, I've created a simple workflow that acts as a receiver for the webhook that comes out of Salesforce. I've done that by binding it to an HTTP method over here. I've got a subdomain, which belongs to my account, and I've bound it to a /approval call. I then secured that with an API key in Flowgear, and I've pasted that complete URL as the outbound message URL inside Salesforce. So when the status changes on that order, it will fire this workflow, and this workflow contains a sub-workflow which will actually affect that status change back in CloudBlue Connect. So let's drill into the sub-workflow. And this is just making a single call. It's receiving the ID of the request that needs to be updated, and then it's using the post-approve request call to be able to update the status of that request. So let's go back to Salesforce. I'll go to Activated and click Mark as Current Status. And now back in CloudBlue Connect, we had that pending order. Let's just refresh that screen. And we can see that all of the orders have now been approved. Now that happened via API and we weren't in the design canvas, so let me show you what actually executed behind the scenes. If we go back to FlowGear, we can access the global activity log and just click on search to pull up a list of all of those interactions. And over here is that second workflow starting that I mentioned, and that calls into a sub workflow which makes that CloudBlue Connect call to update the status. To get started using the CloudBlue Connect node inside FlowGear, go ahead and create a trial account at flowgear.net. If you'd like help from our team, we'd also be happy to offer you a complimentary proof of concept integrating CloudBlue Connect into the system of your choice.